Hey, what's happening, Wargamers? Coming back with another video after a long hiatus. Thankfully, it is something I can now do again. My computer is back up and running. Sound's going for the moment, so fingers crossed that that's going to be happening for a little while. It's definitely going to be making editing a lot easier, and it's going to keep me on my path to trying to get more content down. Now, as you guys have known in the past, I have tried to expose you guys to different types of miniatures, different types of games, because obviously there are so many great different producers of miniatures and games out there these days, which is why I'm really excited today that I can show you guys a game that I've been waiting for on Kickstarter for quite some time, called Folklore the Affliction. Yes, Folklore the Affliction. It's right behind me, and yet I still have to take a look at it. So, as you can see, it is this fella right here. It is a game by Will Donovan and Nick Lane and Greenbrier Games, and it has a very occult D&D style feel to it, without the need of a game master, which is really cool. It's something I'm really looking forward to digging my teeth into and checking it out. But what we're going to do is just put together a quick unboxing video of just the core game. I'm not going to do all the other Kickstarter bonuses unless people really want. But one of the big things about the Kickstarter was you got a whole bunch of the tan figurines or tan miniatures of the stuff that's already in the core box. So, I mean, you see the gray ones, you see them. So I'm going to show that off. We're going to take a look at the components and whatnot, and just give you some thoughts as I go through it. So let's go take a look at the box. All right, so once again, here it is. Right off the get-go, I absolutely love the artwork on this one. I've always been a big fan of more of the occult style stuff in gaming. Ravenloft was one of my favorite modules for D&D, and even a lot of other things. Like I dabbled with the White Wolf stuff for a little while, and I've always dug that aesthetic. And this just sort of hits all the right beats for me. So, you know, it's a game I'm very excited about jumping into. Just as I get this box open, these things are always problematic. So the game itself is set in sort of in a fictional European style territory called Kremel, and it's got a wonderful map in there and whatnot. But right off the bat, you can see one of my favorite things about this thing. So many board games out there. They have their vacuum packed trays in here, but they never really give you a good idea on where everything goes afterwards. I absolutely love this. This is such a cheap, easy way of ensuring that you're always going to be able to put everything back where it belongs. It just gives you that idea, and you know, matches exactly with the vacuum pack tray. So we got the miniatures here, and I'm just going to take these out and move the box over for a moment. And some are falling out there, so that's not the most secure down there, but with plastic minis, you have a little bit of leeway. And the first thing I have to say about these things is that these are absolutely great quality minis. I'm just going to try and adjust the light here. Yeah, like these miniatures are absolutely fantastic. This is actually one of the miniatures that convinced me to back the game in the first place. So many miniature board games have that really cheap, soft PVC plastic for their miniatures. These ones are actually pretty dense. They have some good sturdy feel to them. It feels like they can actually take a little bit of punishment, which is nice. They're not soft, and even then, a lot of the details are just really crisp. Like you can get in there, and unfortunately, the lighting is going to be something I struggle with, I think. So, like even there, you get in there and like look at along the robes there. You can actually see the little runes that are, or I guess patterns, runes, I'm not quite sure, that are actually in there. And they're just great. Like, they're just fantastic quality. And these are going to be a lot of fun to paint, I think. I'm really eager to jump into them. Some of the monsters do have a little bit of a cartoony feel to them. I mean, look at that skull there a little bit. That's a little cartoony. But given the nature of the nature of the game, the miniatures and whatnot, that's something I can easily accept. Like I think just in general, any minor cartoony nature in some of these guys is easily forgiven. One thing I did notice when I opened it up the first time, I did have one minor manufacturer's error that I got to fix. As you can see, the exorcist's head, for whatever reason, the glue didn't take, and his head's doing a bit of a nosedive. But I'm pretty, yeah, it's pretty loose. I can move it around, as you can see. So I should be able to fix that. Worst case scenario, I have the tan one. But either way, the models are absolutely great. Really, really digging them. Really looking forward to getting into them. And of course, you know, you guys know me. I'm always going to go through and show you everything as I paint it up and get it all ready for the table. Next up, we're going to take a look at the rest of the contents of the game itself. So this is going to be the things like the dice, the character trackers, the books. Although sillily, like a silly person that I am, I think I have the rulebook somewhere else because I did crack it open to take a look at it beforehand. But as you can see, there's a whole bunch of, there's the light there. There's just a whole bunch of content to take a look at here. So I mean, first off, we got a whole bunch of dice. We got some stands, some markers. Dice are pretty standard. You got your D10s, you got your D6s, your D4s. So yeah, you've seen dice, you've seen them all. We have, looks like these are various trackers for health, power points, ghost points, another really cool mechanic of the game. When your people die for the first time, they become ghosts. And if they die a second time, they go to limbo. And there's ways of bringing them back either way. But of course, there's always going to be a little bit of a cost. So let's just crack this open. And yeah, so nothing fancy here, just standard cardstock, but you know, the artwork looks good. The color's nice, vibrant type stuff. So, you know, so far really enjoying it. As far as components for a board game go, I've actually been extremely happy with these ones so far. They've just all felt like really solid content. They just feel like good quality. Now here's another really cool set of stuff for the game. Because you're going across a world map, they've set up various things called, well, basically road events, and then they also have off-road events. And from what I understand, there are some spoilers in these, so I'm not going to really go into those ones. But basically, whenever you end your turn on the world map, be it on the road or off-road and whatnot, you're going to draw one of these cards, and it's going to lead you into either some encounter of some sort. So it could be a fight, could be an encounter, skirmish. It might just be meeting with various travelers and whatnot. But there's a whole bunch of things that can happen with it, and they can actually affect the outcome of, or the progression of the story, which is really cool. So again, that's another feature that I'm really looking forward to. Just, it really helps the game sort of play along. So we have a bunch of other cards here, and these look like they're companion cards, various item cards, tarot cards. Apparently whenever you die, you get a tarot card, and this is when you die as a ghost, I believe it is. You come back, and you have this card here, and it gives you some various sort of disadvantages, depending on what the tarot says. So again, it's a kind of a neat way of punishing you for death without saying, you know what, you can no longer play the game, which is really nice. It's like, obviously, whoever dies and goes into the limbo state, there's going to be some downtime for them where they don't get to do anything. But, you know, generally speaking, it seems like for the most part, the game is designed around trying to keep people active for as long as possible. Next up, we're going to take a look at the character booklets here. Now, these are the 6 base characters that come with the base game itself. There's 6 more that come with the expansion. And each one, I mean, I'm not sure how I feel about this folding booklet thing. I mean, it does the trick, but I don't know. There's just something about it. I feel like they could have done a little bit more with maybe a proper dashboard. But it is what it is. It's not enough to turn me off anything by far. But it's one of those things where, you know, a little quality of life improvement could have gone a long way. So we have all the characters, and each character itself, as you can see, can choose 2 different paths when they progress along. The back of it has their experience tree, or lore in this case, so they can determine how they level up their abilities. Certain things that they can do at various locations, starting equipment, and a little bit of background on the characters themselves. So again, they, you know, kind of some cool stuff, and they're not your typical D&D style character classes. It's not like you're sitting on, like, you know, the paladins, the fighters, the wizards and whatnot. They have other things like the Arcanist, the Exorcist. They have an Avenging Madman, which my understanding is he's essentially like a farmer who's gone a little baddie and he's out for revenge. There's an Exorcist, an Archaeologist. That was the cool guy with the whip that I showed you earlier. So just really neat stuff. Just nice different concepts aside from the typical ones. These are your encounters and enemies. So the two things that happen, you have your skirmish ones. These are little things that can happen on the world map itself, and they actually apparently have a sort of a modified fight sequence where you're not actually fighting on a typical map, but instead you're fighting more abstract. And then you have these ones for the encounters, which are your more typical combat. But again, really cool. It breaks down all the information you need to properly run them, and there's a whole bunch of different different enemies here. And then from what I understand, there's also things called Afflictions, which are supposed to be like the big bads of the whole thing. I'm not, yeah, without showing off too much, I'm not entirely sure where they are in this stack. They're around somewhere. But yeah. So they got the Afflictions as well, which are sort of like the big bads that, from what I understand, cap out the story missions, chapters, that sort of stuff. So yeah, the cards themselves are all fairly solid quality. I really like them. I mean, aside from the character booklets, I wouldn't really say any of them need real improvement. But yeah, I really enjoy it. This is one of the things I really like here. I'm just going to move this other stuff for the moment. And this is the world map. So it's on a nice sturdy board, folds out. Oh, sorry about that. And as you can see, if I can ever unfold it here, you have your world map. So you have your little road segments right along there. You have your off-road segments. And just, yeah, really neat, really nice way of setting up. I just, not much to say. It's a good solid board and whatnot. It should last you a good while. It should go be able to take some wear and tear rather nicely as well. There was a neoprene one that was available on the Kickstarter. I opted against it. To be honest, I'm not sure if I'm second guessing myself on that one. But it's kind of a neat little thing. If you can get your hands on it, it does look pretty good. So we got our tokens: doors, debris, character tokens, first player tokens. You know, very standard things, all your status effects. And actually, one thing I gotta say is a lot of these are just, there we go, open them up a little bit, and just the token quality itself, just, you know, it's actually good width to it. Or good thickness rather. Just good quality. I mean, I'm really liking it. Just the component quality of this game so far, I've really enjoyed. It's really solid quality, and I got to admit, early on, I wasn't sure how I was going to feel about the components. Some of the early updates and whatnot, where they were showing off some of the components, I admit I started getting a little iffy about it. Wasn't quite sure what to think, but for the most part, they really followed through. Next up, these are all the encounter maps. So it looks like each one's double-sided, nice glossy paper. Now this is one that I kind of feel the most disappointed about. Not that it's bad, but when you compare it to the tiles that you see in things like Descent or Imperial Assault, or a lot of other miniature board games, where they have that nice thick cardstock, which is, you know, it's durable, it's rigid. Having just, you know, thin printouts, I mean, it might have been a cost-saving measure to it, but it just, in comparison to a lot of the other components in the game itself, it just feels a little like a bit of a cop-out. Like they did it just to save costs, and not really for any other reason. And I admit it's a little upsetting. If they weren't double-sided, I'd probably look into mounting each of them on a piece of foam core or something like that. But because they are double-sided, unfortunately, that's not really an option. Um, and then we get to the booklets themselves. I'm just gonna show you the quality of it. I'm not gonna actually show you details of it because this is all the story booklet stuff right here. Don't want to give away spoilers or anything like that. But both the main rulebook and the story journal, both kind of thin, you know, standard glossy paper and whatnot. Nothing really to write home about. What I will say though is that having read through the rulebook, it seems kind of dense at first, but as I was reading through it, a lot of it just seems very straightforward. So it's actually a rather well done rulebook in that regard. There's not a lot of complaints I have with it. Some errors here and there. Some I guess either typos or omissions or whatnot. Some things could be a little bit more clear. But generally speaking, I read the rulebook and I feel like I have a pretty solid idea on how the game plays. So there you go, guys. That is the contents of the game. And just gonna finish it off with a nice little zoom in shot of all the miniatures. So I'm doing this by hand with my cell phone as usual, so forgive the stabilization and whatnot. But as you can see, like, these miniatures just look fantastic. Great selection of them. You got some werewolves, some gargoyles, some trees. Although the werewolf, as you can see, it's an example of kind of the overly cartoony look of it. Again, not a deal breaker. A little bit less gothic-y than I was hoping, based on the original concepts and whatnot. But definitely something I can still get behind. Just some great models, though. Like, so many. And, of course, being the Kickstarter backer, I got all these guys in tan as well, which is fantastic. But here you go. So that is Folklore the Affliction. So it is a game designed for 1 to 5 players. It can take anywhere from an hour to 90 minutes. Usually, include another half hour on top of that, whatnot. Just gothic horror D&D style gameplay in a board game format, which is really cool. If this is something that interests you, I definitely recommend you guys take a look at the Kickstarter. They're doing a second Kickstarter for it at the moment, where you can get all the goodies and whatnot, and I can include a link for that. And I do definitely plan on doing some playthrough videos of that. Obviously, spoilers and whatnot. But yeah, you guys, if you want to check it out, go ahead. That video should be following this one, if not paired with it as soon as it's up. So really looking forward to that. And of course, if you want to see more content, be sure to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and hit that little bell to get notifications for whenever I do new content, which I am going to try and do a little bit more regularly these days. But there you go, guys. That is Folklore the Affliction. As always, happy wargaming.